So this little bit of education is about putting any pattern in any shape. And we're going to do it with the shapes on the USB. Now, if you brought our previous digital Craftorium, which was all about boxes, you had 30 patterns on there as well. And I showed you how to do that, how you could put any pattern in any panel on any box. You can also use the patterns from the boxes with our nested shapes, and you can use the patterns from this USB with your boxes USB. So it's like a bolt-on, like an add-on, which is really cool because you're not just stuck with those 30 patterns. The patterns that we brought you previously will also work like this, which I love. Right, so we've designed this in our last little clip. So I'm going to move that one out of the way. And I'm just going to drag those two and move those out of the way for now because I'm going to work with this. And I want this shape to be the outside of the pattern. All right, so when it's finished, the pattern will be inside there and it will cut out of that shape. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to Edit, and I'm going to duplicate this, because I always like to duplicate it. Even if I don't use it, I like to duplicate it before I start, because otherwise I get halfway through and then I forget. I am that person that literally does something and 10 minutes later I've forgotten. So I've got my original shape. What I'm going to do now is create an inward offset line of that shape that I'm going to put the pattern into first of all. So I'm going to go to here and I'm going to create a 4mm, and it can be whatever distance you want it to be, inward offset line, and delete the original. And I can delete it because I've already duplicated it. So I'm going to delete it so I know that exactly which shape I'm working with. I'm not getting mixed up as to which layer I'm working with. So I'm going to drag that over there, and now I'm going to bring in one of the patterns. So I'm going to choose number 16. You can choose any of them, doesn't matter. And I'm going to go to SVG, choose file. I'm going to go back into my USB, and this time I'm going to go into my patterns, and I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to choose number 16. So here, so double click, and now I press OK. Now this is where I need to explain to you, if you've done anything like this with me before, you'll know why I'm going to do the next bit. The Scan and Cut sees this because we didn't compound those paths, which we talked about in the introduction. The Scan and Cut sees that as a square with all those pattern pieces sat on top of it. So if I want to do anything with that, I have to do something called dividing it. And dividing in my head is a big digital punch that comes down and it punches all those pattern pieces through that square that they're sat on top of. And it leaves it with a shape. It leaves it with the panel the way that we see it, like a stencil design. Okay, so it makes the Scan and Cut see it differently. So that's the bit we're going to do first. So to do that, we're going to left click our mouse and drag a box all the way around all of that. So you want the square and all the detail. We then go to Edit. And down at the bottom, there's a process overlap section. The second one in from the left is called divide. So if I click divide now, you'll get that blue and black bar scrolling across the top. That means it's thinking about it. I've tested all these, so I've made sure that it works with all of the patterns. And then when I just pick up the square and move it, this is what the digital punch has done. It's like die cutting, basically. It's die cut it. So it's now left all this waste bit behind. So I don't need that now. So I can go to this. Now, if I want to keep it, you can go to Edit and you can group it. And then this would cut into your card. So if you're making a stencil, this is what I would do. I would cut that in the middle of a piece of Mylar or Dough-Flex or whatever you're using to create your stencil, without an outside edge, because when you're stenciling, the one thing you don't want to be worried about is getting ink over the edges or paste over the edges. So just cut this without the outside edge, and then you're not limited. Yes, it wastes a little bit of card or Mylar, but it's much easier to handle. But for this, I don't need that. So what I'm going to do is put that in the bin. And even when I've put it in the bin, I can still undo it. So if I change my mind, undo is your best friend. Right, so now I'm going to bring on the shape that we created, the inward offset line that we created. So I'm going to bring this in here and I can see that it's a little bit too big. But if I'm going to change it, I need to change both of them at the same time. So I'm going to bring that over there. I'm going to drag a box across those two. I'm going to go to edit and align them centrally vertically and edit centrally horizontally. You could make the actual pattern bigger if you wanted to. And then I'm going to go to edit and group it. And then once I've got it grouped, I'm just going to bring it into here and I'm just going to make it a little bit smaller, just like that. Okay, so now I've got my perfect matte layers again. So I'm going to move this out of the way, go to edit and ungroup, click your mouse to retrieve the shapes or release the shapes, and then I can bring that back over to here. So let's move that out of the way. So the first thing I'm going to do with this is align them. So I'm going to go to edit and align centrally and edit and align in the middle and then tap the screen. Now this is the key bit. This is the bit that you have to do, otherwise it doesn't work. You click on the shape, you go back into edit, you go down to to order here, and you send it to the back. So you click on that and nothing, it looks like nothing's changed on your mat, but it has. Then you're going to drag both of those. You're going to go to edit and you're going to go to subtract or remove overlapped. So let's do subtract first. And that now gives us that pattern in that shape. So that then would cut into your cardstock. However, if you want to cut it out, this is where you bring the original shape back in. So now you can drag a box around those two, go to edit and align centrally vertically, edit and align centrally horizontally. And then if you want to, you can divide it. So if we go to edit and divide, and it will punch that waist through that shape like that. So you can then use that and you can use that. So that will cut in, that will cut out. Now, I think that is a fabulous way of creating a really beautiful patterned panel. So you've got 30 shapes and you've got 30 patterns, but now we've already done changing the shape by welding two together. I've shown you how you can make them bigger and smaller and make matte layers. Now you've got all these patterns that you can then change because now you've taken part of that panel, so it's different to the original. So you can see now how we're starting to build this library of digital cutting files. And even just with one file, you've got loads of different options, which I think is really super cool because it gives you more creativity. Now I'm just going to undo this. So I'm going to do two things in one. So I'm going to undo this until we go back to our full panel again. So just keep going undo until we get back to the square panel where we divided it in the first place. Because that's lovely. And I love the fact that I can do that. But can I do it with other shapes? Can I do it with a letter? Can I do it with a heart? So let me show you that bit while we're here. So we're kind of doing two steps in one here, but it just saves us going back through the same thing again. So let's start with a shape. So basic shapes, these are the ones that are installed into your machine's memory. And I'm going to bring that over like that. So I've got a heart. I'm going to make that a little bit bigger, like that. And I'm also going to duplicate it. So I'm going to duplicate it. So I've got two. So I've got one that I know I can use later on. I'm going to take this one and I'm going to create an inward offset line again to put the pattern into. So edit. You can create an outward offset line. So if you wanted to put your pattern in there and your outside edge be bigger, you can do it that way as well. It doesn't always have to be inward. So if I go to here, I'm going to do a 3mm inward offset line and delete the original because I've duplicated it. So I can get rid of that one now. So now this is going to go in here. So I'm going to drag a box around those. I'm going to go to edit and align it centrally vertically. Go to edit and align it centrally horizontally. Click with your mouse to release the shapes. Click on the heart. Go to edit and in order, send to back. drag across both so they're selected, go to edit and subtract. And now I've got that shape in the heart. Now, a heart is a funny shape. So when I bring this over here, if I align this centrally vertically and centrally horizontally, you'll see what I mean. So I'm going to go edit and align to the center and edit and align to the middle. And can you see how that pattern is off? It's not lined up perfectly. So all you do is highlight the outside edge and just use your arrows on your computer to just nudge that down. So you've now got an even border. So I'm looking at the top of this little piece here and the edge of the heart, and the same here and the same here and the same here. So now I've got those, I can go select all, edit and divide. And now I've got one that can cut in and it can cut out. So from that one pattern, you've then got that basic shape that you can do. So now let me show you with a letter. So I'm going to undo this again. I love the undo button. I just wish there was one in real life that I could press when I've eaten too much chocolate. That would be really cool. No, it's not. I might have asked it to do too many things in one go here. So let's just give it a minute to catch up. No, it's moving that heart very slightly, so we're in a good place. Right, let's grab that heart, move that out of the way. Let's grab both of those and put them in the bin. Okay, let's move this out of the way for now. So if we go back up, or go back using your arrow that tells you you're returning to the categories, and we go to text, let's choose this font, and then you double click on the font and it allows you to delete that text. So let's do a letter A, because I want to show you with something that's got that landlocked area in the middle. So if I type A, don't want that, want a capital A, like that, I can then click off that and it gives me the ability to then make this bigger. Now, it depends, because we haven't designed these fonts, they've been designed or they've been brought into Canvas by Brother. I don't know whether they've saved them as a compound path or not, whether that little triangle in the middle of the A is sat on top or whether it's been punched through. So the easiest way to find out is to go to Edit and Divide. And then when you move the letter A, nothing's happened. So it means that that has already been saved as a compound path. So you don't need to do anything with that now. So let's move that out of the way. Let's drag this in. And let's position this A. Let's do it in the middle there. Let's make it a little bit bigger, like that. Right, so I now want to duplicate that. If you send the letter to your machine and then send it back to Canvas, it will allow you to access this little bit here. In fact, I'm going to do that. So just bear with me a minute while I do that, because I want to show you how you can do it. So I'm going to send both of those. I'm going to download both of those to my Scan and Cut. Okay. It's telling me that it's ready. So I'm going to go to my machine now and I'm going to switch it on. It's gone to sleep. It's having a little rest. I have to say I'm not surprised, because I've worked this machine really hard this week. So to retrieve it from the cloud, I'm going to retrieve data from the cloud and it should bring on my pattern and my letter A. And I'm hoping this works, because sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. So I've got my letter A there and I've got my pattern. I'm instantly not going to do anything to it. I'm just going to save it back into the cloud. And then we'll see whether it's behaving itself today or not. If I say that, it's more likely to be me doing something wrong than this, to be fair to it. Right, so I've got two letter A's. And the reason I've got two is because I want to make one of them as a matte layer. Now, on a STX machine, you have the two concentric circles to create offset lines. And when you do it, it makes the outside edge bigger and the inside piece smaller automatically. On a CM machine, you don't have that function, but you do have it in Canvas. So I'm going to show you how to do that. But the first thing I'm going to do is divide this. Because we sent it to the machine and back again, we need to redivide it, okay, because it's changed it. So if I go to edit, you can see it will allow me to ungroup it, whereas once it's divided, you can't ungroup it because it's one shape. So if that appears, even if you've divided it once and then you send it to your machine and send it back, you need to divide it again. So let's do that bit first. So we're going to divide it. And that bar is going to come up. There you go. And then when I move this over here, I'm going to drag around here and put this in the bin. And things like this, this is why we do a free class every month. Because sometimes if you do something like this and you don't realise that you need to divide it again, you then get really frustrated because it won't work. So then you come on the class and you put, or you email me and you put, we work it out and we show you how to do it in the free class. That's why I love doing them, because I think that's super. So that letter A is going to have that pattern put into it. So let's work on this letter A now. So we're going to go to edit and ungroup it. So I've now got this outside shape here sat on top of that rectangle, because remember, it doesn't see it as an aperture until we make it see it, which is good for this because it allows me to access both shapes. So if I click on that one, I'm going to create a offset line, and I'm going to create a 3mm outward offset line and delete the original and press OK. So when I now try and get to this triangle, it won't let me because it's underneath what it sees as that solid shape. So we go to edit and we go to order and we send the solid shape to the back, and nothing changes on your screen until you then click on that triangle, and it allows you to access that shape. So now go to edit, offset, create a 3mm. This can be a little tricky sometimes. So if it goes to an even number, try and get it to an odd number. There we go. 3mm inward this time because I want it smaller. Delete the original and press OK. So now I have, when I drag those and group them, a perfect matte layer for this to sit on top of. So let's move that out of the way and let's bring these back in. There we go. So our pattern and our original letter. I'm just going to see if I need to divide that. Let's have a look. It's always worth trying it. If it doesn't do anything, yep, there you go. It means that it was okay. If it didn't do anything, it would have meant it was fine. But because it left me that little triangle in the middle, I definitely needed to divide that. Right, so let's drag a box around both of those. Let's go to edit and align centrally vertically, edit and align centrally horizontally. Click the mouse, select the letter, go to edit and send to the back. Now, just before I do that, I'm looking at this letter, and to me, that's not in the middle. It's because it's not a symmetrical shape. So what I'm going to do is line it up so that it fits that pattern a little bit better. So what I'm doing is looking at this circle here, and I'm trying to get it into the middle of this triangle. So if I just nudge the pattern this way a little bit, I'm happier with that now. So don't be scared of moving the shape. If this, because the letter isn't symmetrical, don't be, just find a point and make sure that that point's central. So now what I'm going to do is just make sure I've done this right. Click on the A, go to edit and send it to the back. Drag a box around both of those. Go to edit and subtract. And it leaves you with that. And then you're like, well, that looks like a bit like a letter A, but it doesn't have, it's not pronounced. But when I bring this in, look what happens then. So I'm going to drag this. I'm going to edit and align centrally vertically, and edit and align centrally horizontally. And now I have a pattern in a letter. So you could go out now and buy a really inexpensive box frame, create somebody's name with patterns in it, and then decorate it with all the florals. And that would be a lovely, lovely gift. So times are a little bit tougher, aren't they, at the moment? Cost of living's going through the roof. Buy an inexpensive box frame for $4.99. Take a few pieces of card and make something that is bespoke to that person. And then, you know what? Open an Etsy shop and start selling them, because you can. That's the great thing about it. And that's why I love bringing you these USBs, but I love teaching you this bit more, because as you start to play around in Canvas, even if you make a mistake, sometimes something really cool comes out of it. And that's the joy of working with the two together. So I hope you enjoyed that little tutorial, and come back because I've got more to share.
If you want to see more from Highlight Crafts, make sure you click the like button. Subscribe by clicking the subscribe button below, and click the bell icon to receive notifications of all our future content. You can also click here to see our latest video, or click here to see more videos like this one.